All right, welcome. Let's call to order the March 20th, 2023 board meeting. Everyone welcome. Let's do the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Excellent. Also need the approval of the February 27th, 2023 agenda meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, Dr. Freeman.
Board members, we're in good hands tonight. The rest of them. Yeah, guys, y'all come on up to the front. I like to Coach Adam, how bad? Come on over. We're going by weight class. This is my side of the house anyway. All right, so I want to introduce to you the 2023 Alabama State Champion Wrestling team from Vestavia High School. Welcome, guys, to the board meeting tonight. I'm so glad to have you. Coach T. Adams is with us, and Coach, I want you to brag on these guys and talk about the season. Then we'll let them introduce themselves. But this is not the first time we've won a state championship in wrestling, but it's one of many times the legacy just kind of continues. So just tell us a bit about the season, how many wrestlers you got out, and just anything you want to share.
I can't say enough about this group. Started the season with 92 wrestlers on our team. Like I said, we can rival our football team in numbers, which I like. This group, like I said, they put it together. A lot of people doubted them after we lost in state duels. So I reached out, we came back to the room and said, hey guys, we got 30 days to figure out what we want to do. And they made the commitments, a lot of morning practices, getting up at 5:45 in the morning. A lot of running. We did have the kid sleep in once and got water poured on him. Kind of missed the morning practice too. It's okay, still love it. But they did great. The coaching staff did a great job, Coach Hawk and others. So very proud of this group.
Yeah, that's awesome. Second one in 3 years.
Yes, so the senior class finished their careers with 4 trophies, runner-up state champs, runner-up state champs.
Take that. Yeah, awesome. Let me get you introduced yourself. We'll start with my weight class down here. We'll go that direction.
Kel Tucker, 106, third place.
Right.
Stone Phillips, 113, second place.
Ben Ashley, 120, sixth place.
Davis Reef, 126, fourth place. Hastings Roberts, 132, third place.
Andrew Sullivan, 147, second place.
Mac Chandler, 154, sixth place.
Harris Mitchell, 162, second place.
Clay Johnston, 170, third place.
Luke Dutton, 184.
Richard Dow, 197, fifth place.
Andrew Sykes, 220, first place.
Mitch Taylor, heavyweight, fifth place.
We appreciate you coming tonight, and this is just another testament to a fine athletic program and a wonderful, outstanding athletic bunch of guys and great leadership. Coaches very much appreciated. So I'm going to give Coach Adams a token of appreciation from us as a coin that we think is we call it a challenge coin, but it's a coin that we hand out to those who make appearances with us, and because you model really what we want out of our student athletes: hard work, dedication, determination, and grit, all those things. So really appreciate it. Thank you for being great ambassadors. One of you even made the newspaper, I believe. Sykes down there. Great shot of a champion in the newspaper. So we appreciate that very much. Congratulations again, and good luck. We'll see you here next year.
We're going this way, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mom and Dad, for staying. Thank y'all very much. Okay, we'll move on to our financial statement.
Good afternoon, board members. I provided the February 2023 financial statements and check register for your review. As of February 28th, 2023, we have collected 73% of our budgeted ad valorem tax revenues compared to the 89% that we had received last year. The lag is primarily due to timing issues of when we received the checks, but the good news is, as of today, we have received more revenue than last year. Our total expenditures and transfers out of the general fund as of February 28th were 45.8% of the budget compared to 43.1% last year. All things being equal, we should be at 41.6% of our budget in the fifth month of the fiscal year. We're a little higher than that percentage due to some large one-time expenditures that we've already paid. And our monthly financial statements and check registers are available for viewing on our website upon board approval, and all bank accounts have been reconciled as of February 28th, 2023.
Thanks, Courtney. Just a note again, from the perspective of revenue expenditures, revenues are up a bit, we think, and as are expenditures, as you're seeing and what Courtney just noted a few minutes ago. So with that, I would recommend the board approve financial statement for February 2023.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the financial statement for February of 2023. Do I have a motion to approve? Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Consent items, I recommend the board approve items for field trips that are overnight and in-state for Vestavia High School and Pizitz Middle School.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the overnight and out-of-state field trips. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Item 7 is personnel, and I recommend the board approve the personnel items as submitted.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the board personnel items as submitted. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Ms. Weaver, I do want to point out to you in the personnel items that we have beginning to do some position hires for next year, and some of what you see under employments is based on some analysis that Dr. Ritchie has been doing in the department director of exceptionalities, where we're looking at cost benefit and ways to save the district dollars and still really better maximize how we provide services for students. So I appreciate the work that's going on there. Another good effort to use our dollars the best way we can and best serve our students.
And this stems from moving away from contracting dollars and
Yeah.
hiring them in-house.
That's right, and you'll see some more activity, I think, with that, but I think those are good cost-saving measures and really I'm confident that we'll provide better services for our students.
Thank you, Dr. Ritchie, for doing that. That's an important work of our business. Thank you. All those in favor?
Right. Under new business, I recommend item A, approval of principal contract for Lauren Dressback.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the principal contract for Lauren Dressback. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Congratulations.
It's a nice feeling. Item B, I recommend the board approve the principal contract for Dr. Alicia Hunsberger.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the principal contract for Dr. Alicia Hunsberger. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Dr. Hunsberger. All right. Item C, I recommend the board approve the principal contract for Bill Mann.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the principal contract for Bill Mann. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Congratulations.
Congratulations. Item D, I recommend the board approve the principal contract for Tanya Roselle.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the principal contract for Tanya Roselle. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Roselle. Board members, on these 4 items, just for a matter of context, the state law provides that principals that are non-probationary be on 3-year contracts, which is what's reflected in these. There's a rolling number this year, every year that it comes, depending on when their 3-year contracts expire. But Ms. Dressback and Mr. Mann will be moving from probationary to non-probationary. And the law also requires that we give 90-day notice to our principals. And because their contracts begin July 1, that's why we give that notice to March. But I would just say that they are 4 of 9 outstanding principals in our district, and they really do the chief work of supporting teachers and leading it that way. And so, I just tell you, we are blessed to have the principal corps we have, and I appreciate your support for them.
Without question, y'all do a fabulous job every day.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Item E, I recommend the board approve licensing agreement with Homewood Sporting Goods.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the licensing agreement with Homewood Sporting Goods. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? This is just our continuing work.
Continuing work, the monthly licensing agreements which bring it to us. Very good
Perfect.
job.
Thank you, Linfield. All those in favor? Aye.
Item F, I recommend the board approve the licensing agreement for PNC Investments LLC, doing business as Joyful.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the licensing agreement for PNC Investments LLC, doing business as Joyful. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Thank you. Item G, I recommend the board approve the settlement agreement for Vestavia Hill City Schools versus Samantha Balch.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the settlement agreement for Vestavia Hills City Schools versus Samantha Balch. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Mr. Boydman?
Board members to recommend this settlement. This settlement is purely for economic reasons. It's simply much more expensive to try a case. In the event we had to try the case, it would be, we are a settlement amount of less than 10% of the ultimate exposure on the litigation. It's an economic decision. I told you from the beginning, I think we'll win the case, but when there's an opportunity to resolve the case for less it's going to cost to get to that resolution, it's simply the best way to take care of taxpayer dollars and to settle.
Thank you, Mr. Boydman.
Mr. Quinn?
I would like to say this, that I totally concur with your evaluation and your recommendation to the board. I want to speak from personal experience. This man right here is the best education lawyer in the state of Alabama, and we're lucky to have him represent us. I think you did a great job, Mark.
Thank you.
Any questions? Board? All right, all those in favor?
Item H, I recommend the board approve the 2023-24 Parent-Student Handbook as submitted.
You have heard the superintendent's recommendation to approve the 2023-24 Parent-Student Handbook. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I want to let you know that there's been a great amount of input and work that's been put into this, and I appreciate your help and assistance with it. We've had some good parent feedback solicited this year, which has also been helpful. This is always an iterative document because laws change and processes change, and we have to always be up to speed on it. Approving it in March allows us to go ahead and get this released for when we do registration as it opens up. There could be changes subsequent to any legislative action that takes place, and if that happens, we would come back in July with some form of an amendment. But Jennifer Bailey leads this charge, and and Jennifer, I appreciate really good work on this. It's a very tedious process to follow each year, but a really good process this year, and I appreciate the work on that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
All right. Item I is an information-only item. It's regarding the Alabama Seal of Biliteracy. Joining us tonight is Lisa McFadden, who is the head of the Department of World Languages at the high school. And I wanted her to share with you something we've been doing, but because the state has now adopted a Seal of Biliteracy, just a little shift in how that will look for us. Lisa, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm very excited. This is a program that we started here in Vestavia Hills back in 2017. There was a need for us to embrace world languages and the diversity that we have within our community. And the state at that time did not have anything in place. It was under construction or under consideration. It has taken up until this past summer for this to be approved and for there to be an official plan for the state put into place. We're still getting more information as it's still developing even now, but our Vestavia Hills City Schools Seal of Biliteracy, which began back in 2017, has had 567 students who've earned it in 13 different languages, which is a wonderful honor. And we're very excited about the opportunity for our students to not only have a local recognition, but one that would be recognized across the state as well. We recognized 116 students back in January, and tomorrow we start our first round of testing for our next group of kids with about 200 kids all day. Tomorrow's going to be an exciting day for us, so we're really excited. The Alabama Seal of Biliteracy will actually replace the Vestavia Hills City Schools Seal of Biliteracy that we have. Fortunately for us, that the guidelines and the requirements for that are in alignment. They use Vestavia as a model for many portions of it. There was some adaptations for it, but the main goal for the Seal of Biliteracy is to embrace students' home languages if they speak another language at home, as well as to encourage our own students who are learning a second language to pursue that beyond the basics, because what we want our kids to do is to be able to go out into the workforce and out into the world and be able to be productive and be ready to meet those challenges. We live in an interconnected world where languages are critical now. Being able to speak only one language limits us, and so being able to provide this will be very helpful. This is just a list of some of the different purposes here to study the whole reasoning behind, the rationale behind the Alabama Seal is to encourage the study of multiple languages. So if you speak a different language at home, besides English, you have that one, and then you can also add to it by a focus study within our school system. It also gives a certification, whenever you go in and put a job application and you note it, that you speak another language, this is a verification of the level of your ability, not just saying I can speak Spanish, or French or German or Chinese or whatever the language may be, but it has a uniformity to it as well. The institutions of higher learning, they're looking into it. I know this past week I was in a webinar with Avant Testing, and they are talking with many of the universities, and many of the universities are beginning to recognize and give academic credit for the Seal of Biliteracy as well. And it also embraces diversity. We have a lot more diversity within our community than you notice at first glance, and this embraces that as well. So who can earn this? Most any student has the opportunity to do it. But what it means is that you are showing proficiency, the ability to read, write, speak, and listen and understand in English in addition to another language. And that language can be a home language or one that is learned within our school system. For the requirements that they must meet, they have to meet our height under the Alabama State Seal of Biliteracy. They have to meet graduation requirements, of course. Demonstrate proficiency in English as well as another language of their choice. And the stamp assessment that we're giving tomorrow is one of the means that we verify their level of proficiency. Like it goes from levels of intermediate, mid proficiency is what is called functional fluency, where you can survive. There's one section that will probably be modified later on with the Alabama State Seal that has some verbiage that is going to be adjusted. But students who achieve this are at an intermediate mid-level. This program will, like I mentioned before, replace the program that we have already had in place since 2017. It has the same high standards, and it continues to embrace the diversity that we have here. And the way the state has dictated that it needs to be documented is by having the seal attached to the diploma as well as noted on the transcripts, the students' transcripts. So we're excited about this program being, able to be implemented hopefully within our system as well.
Does it implement this year at graduation or no?
Well, that is for us to decide, because we have to, whenever, we have to give it to you guys to be approved, and once it's approved, we submit it to the state. And then everything is already in place that the state requires, as far as documenting test scores, and that type of thing. So a lot of it is maybe time sensitive.
So in terms of the process, you're waiting just a verification from our
Once,
office to say.
whenever you guys say, yes, we will give you permission to, then we are able to submit it, and then, it's a matter of paperwork and being able to turn around. Now, there are a couple of things that I'm not sure whether the state has gotten worked out yet, like what the seal looks like that goes on the diplomas, as well as I know Power Schools, previously, there was not a place for it to be placed on the transcript, so we had to put it under testing. So now that the state has something in place, hopefully they are adjusting Power Schools to allow for that to be noted. Because the thing is that some of our students not only get it in one language, but they get it in multiples. We had a student this past January who received it in English, French, Portuguese, and Russian.
Wow.
So and he self-studied two of those languages. He self-studied. Another one he took, obviously French, he took at our high school and in our program. So being able to note those individual languages is important, and whenever you go into the workforce, being able for them to see that, as well as to the university level, it's super important.
Well, I think it's just fantastic that the state used our model. So that speaks volumes for what you all are doing in the World Languages Department and what you set up and put in since, for the last 7-8 years that the state's now calling to us.
Yes, we're very excited.
Excellent work. Excellent.
Thank you.
So, and I just like to point out, in addition to the biliteracy, the actual credits that come with it, I mean, it is real dollars for the colleges, and I can speak from experience that we have benefited from this. The counselor, the administrator in charge of counseling went to one of my children and said, well, wait a minute, did you do this X, Y, and Z? And it's like, well, sure did, and these are the credits, whatever. And then all of a sudden, boom, that was a year worth of coursework she didn't have to do because she had gone through this program. So it's unbelievable what y'all did.
Thank you. And even my own daughter is interesting because, of course, kids, they listen to you, but they kind of halfway listen to you. And I told them, I said, you understand when you go out to get a job, this is going to set you apart from someone else. And so she was getting her first little job, and they said, do you speak any other languages? And she goes, well, I have the seal of biliteracy in Spanish. They hired her and gave her an increase in pay because now they had someone who could communicate, even if it was at a functional level. A lot of times people, they don't realize, does it mean whenever the Alabama seal that they're fluent in everything? No, but they're functional, and it is a pathway because whenever they choose to do, there's another program that we have that is in tandem with the Alabama seal. It's the Global Seal of Biliteracy, and it's a credentialing that is recognized internationally. So whenever our students go to UAB or any other schools, they can continue and level up and go from functional fluency, reassess, and earn it at working level, and then continue on to professional level. So it fosters a growth mindset with our kids as well, that this is not the end game, but this is part of the journey, and that gives them the affirmation of you're doing it right, you're able to function, now let's move and keep it going.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. To stay in the theme of world languages, I wanted to bring a report today tonight Dr. Randy's going to share on One Rebel, One Future. This is one of the other components of our plan, which is to add languages into our K-5 experience. And so I asked Dr. Randy to share some thoughts on that. It's got some really neat, different kind of things to bring to you tonight. I think you'll enjoy. Dr. Randy.
Yes, I hope you will enjoy. Thank you for having me tonight. So again, the presentation tonight is around Goal 1. And when we think about our first goal, we really want to make sure that our students find value and meaning in the work. And what better way to do that than languages? So when we think about world languages, we really think about culture, business, and education. And so I want you to think with me through that this afternoon. So we have 25 countries represented in the Vestavia Hill City Schools. Our students speak 36 different languages, and English is not the first language of 483 students in our school system. And then when we look through the business lens, companies like Mercedes, Airbus, Hyundai, Mazda, Toyota, and Honda have decided to call Alabama home. So what job opportunities will our students have right here in our state for businesses that are located and housed from other countries? When we look at what we currently offer, when we look at education, this is a summary of our world languages from 9th through 12th grade. So you can see that when we look at students that are just taking a regular language course, we have a little over 1,000. We have 246 students who are learning an honors language course, 68 that are taking an AP language class, and over 1,333. And I have that little mark beside it because that may not mean individual students. That's how many students are enrolled in classes. So you may have one student who is taking 2 different classes. So I wanted to be clear about that. But it wouldn't be an extreme amount. So you can see that we really do have nice participation at our high school level of students who are taking a world language class.
Does those include our self-studies?
It does not.
Okay.
These are the classes that we offer on campus. And the percentages represent the percentage out of all the students taking a language class. So when we break it down to look at the different languages taught, you can see that 110 participate in ASL, American Sign Language, 217 French, 144 German, 44 Latin, and 818 Spanish. And then in middle school, we have, 6th grade is not represented because in 6th grade, they take I'm looking for my middle school principal.
Rotation.
Yes, they do kind of like a rotation. Unified arts, yes. So those numbers are not represented here. But you can see in 7th and 8th grade, our students have the opportunity to take French, German, and Spanish. So we want to protect our student experience. And when we think about our mission here in the Vestavia Hill City Schools, it really allows us to focus on that pillar for appreciation of diversity. I had a little activity tonight that was shared with me from the State Department, and I've asked Mr. Callahan, Director of Administrative Services, if he will join me tonight. So I'm going to ask for you to join me here at the podium this afternoon. And Tom, before we get started, will you just share how you learned another language and how it's benefited you in your career?
Absolutely. I had 4 years of Spanish in high school, and Spanish 3 and 4 were honors classes, so they were weighted. It was a wonderful experience, and then I tested into 300 level Spanish in college and took another year of Spanish, and I was the only redheaded freckle-faced kid in college Spanish, so it was a great experience, but that was a long time ago, and it's kind of a use it or lose it thing. So I have the pleasure of speaking Spanish a lot. I'm a baseball umpire, and I umpire a lot of showcase games where the teams come from South Florida. Everybody is from Venezuela or Cuba or Puerto Rico, which is pretty cool. And then we have a large Hispanic population right here. So when I'm buying tires or getting a new roof on or just ordering more chips and salsa, I try to practice my Spanish. And then all my kids had Spanish, and their favorite Spanish teacher is sitting right over here. So and she's fantastic. So.
And how has it helped you when families have come into the school?
Well, when I was at Zitz, we'd get families walk in and spoke no English, so I would try to help them as best I could. So I'm a functional level here at the board, and have people walk in from time to time that need help as well. So anyway, I can pitch in.
Well, thank you, Tom, for joining me this afternoon. So, Tom, if you'll tell us about this and read it for us.
Okay.
The first slide with the picture here.
La culebra rayada se come una rana. So the striped snake is eating frog.
Okay, so if you're like me, you don't speak Spanish. And so I have no idea what that means. So Tom, help us out. Now, if you'll read this paragraph for us.
La culebra rayada es endémica de América Central y México. Esta especie de culebra se encuentra en una amplia gama de hábitats. Les gusta comer lagartijas, ranas, pájaros, salamandras, roedores, insectos grandes e incluso otros culebras.
Okay, if you're like me, and if you don't speak Spanish, so for the people in the audience who do not speak Spanish, I don't know if you're like me, but this makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know if you're uncomfortable right now, but I have really no idea what this means. So, and it probably wouldn't be helpful to me if Tom read it louder, or if he read it slower. That probably wouldn't help me either. So, Tom, help me out a little bit.
Well, we have some keywords here that you might have some context clues. Endémica, América Central, that's easy. Mexico, especie. What does that mean? Species. Yeah. Habitats. Okay. Salamandras. How about roedores?
Rodeos.
Good thing I already pre-
Rodents. Insectos. That's easy. So you got some context clues right there.
Okay, and then you also have some key vocabulary down there for us.
Oh, yes. Encuentra, found, and comer is the verb to eat.
And then you have some context clues with the picture.
Oh, yeah. La culebra, that's the snake, and the poor rana, about to be macena.
So are you feeling a little more comfortable? Do you understand it a little bit more? Who thinks they can tell us what this might be about? Again, I'm asking for my non-Spanish speakers. Do you have any idea what this paragraph now might be about? Anybody who's courageous enough to offer up an idea?
It's about the striped snake, where it's from and what it eats.
Very good. So now, Tom, if you'll read that to us in English.
Oh, sure. Oh, the striped snake is endemic to Central America and Mexico. This species of snake is found in a wide range of habitats. They like to eat lizards, frogs, birds, salamanders, rodents, large insects, and even other snakes.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
And so as we're thinking of that and how you might have felt uncomfortable if you didn't speak the language, one of the things that we're wanting to do with One Rebel, One Future is to be able to offer a special for our youngest to be able to have exposure and experience with the 5 languages that we teach at the high school. So already little people are not inhibited like we are as adults. But can you imagine how much more they would get from this exposure and this experience in elementary school, making them less uncomfortable like we are as adults for a language that we've never studied or don't understand. And so one of the activity that Tom was helping me present tonight was one where we focused on cognates. And cognates are just words from different languages that have similar spellings, pronunciations and meanings. And so that would be an example of like what we could do in a lesson with maybe our upper elementary students to help them identify and recognize some words from other languages. So we have currently 5 languages that are taught at our high school. We have German, French, ASL, American Sign Language, Spanish, and Latin. And so I have some students who are also going to join me tonight. So I would ask Macy and Rylan to come and join me at the podium. I'm going to ask you to first just introduce yourself and tell them what grade you're in and what language you're taking.
I'm Macy Stoffergen. I'm in the 12th grade and I took German for 3 years.
My name is Rylan Dempsey. I am a senior at the high school and I take German.
Thank you. Well, our students, I know you know this, but our students are so smart and wise and really working to firm up and plan what we want to do with our elementary students and how to go about offering a world language special for them. I really have had the pleasure of meeting with a group of our high school students, and these 2 individuals were part of that group. And so I asked them some questions, and their insight and their perspective is so valuable. And student voice really is important to us in our school district. We don't just say that, it really is important. And so I thought it would be nice to have you hear their voice tonight at the board meeting. And so some of the questions that I asked the group, I'm going to ask them here tonight for you. So the first question, and either one of you can answer or both of you can answer. How has learning a language been beneficial to you?
Well, I'm happy to take it. First, let me say thank you for letting us come speak to you tonight. And it's great to see many familiar faces in this room. I started taking German 6 years ago when I was a new student at Pizitz Middle School and had moved here from North Carolina. And that was very happenstance. I had happened to meet the teacher in our Unified Arts program, which is really a discovery process for our 6th graders to test out different languages and different opportunities at the middle school. And I liked German the most. And so when I went into 7th grade, I took German. The value add that German has given me has been just inquantifiable. I've been able to communicate with business leaders. We talked about large corporations that are here in Alabama, Mercedes being the biggest German entity here in Alabama. But we didn't talk about is the over 100 businesses that followed Mercedes here and the thousands of jobs that German companies create. They're our largest international trading partner in the state of Alabama. And so being able to communicate in German started as just me liking the teacher and liking the class, and has evolved into me continuing that education because I see the importance of it in our relationships with business partners in the state of Alabama. The superintendent knows my political involvement, and I enjoy civic involvement in education. And it's important to me that I can communicate with leaders in German, but even if it's not about functionality, that if I'm not speaking directly with someone in German, it's about the value add of understanding another language and just the thought process that goes behind knowing another language. And maybe you talked about your daughter and the job that she got. Maybe there was no functional use of the language every day, but it was about setting themselves apart. And we want to make sure that our students are set apart from other people in talent and workforce.
Like Rylan said, we got to learn the language, but for me, my favorite part was to learn the culture, because Germany's so different from America, but there's also a lot of similarities. So I think it built, especially like in our class, a lot of empathy just for the way that they were raised. That was my favorite part that we ever learned, was how different their school system is. They actually start taking English in kindergarten and take it all the way through. So that's why so many of them can speak English just as well, or if not better than most of us. So I think that was my favorite part, not just learning the language, but the culture.
Thank you. The next question, what benefits do you see from having an elementary special designed to give developmentally age-appropriate exposure to all 5 of the language offered at the high school.
Well, as I mentioned, I didn't have the privilege of being able to come here for elementary school, but I know many of my classmates who got a special, I think in kindergarten, that has been just a small exposure that they got to the language is important for them to be able to continue that education as they went throughout the school system. Again, we had talked about making sure that our values and our goals are in the right place when we think about educating elementary students on a language, and that it isn't about gaining full proficiency by the time they leave our elementary school system. That at 5th grade, they're not going and communicating with international business leaders. But that's not the point. But the point is that they get exposure. And like Macy talked about, they have a deeper understanding that there's a culture beyond what we experience here. I just 2 weeks ago was in Nicaragua, and I wasn't able to take Spanish at the high school. But getting that exposure to a different culture is really important. And if we can simulate just a small part of that in elementary classrooms, I think that expands the horizons of our students and is really important for exposure purposes.
And having that sample testing will let them be able to choose better which one to take in high school, because I 100% took German because I had a friend who told me it was the easiest. I'm gonna be honest. So, like, I don't know what I would have taken. I love German. My dad has promised to take me to Germany, so I would not change it for the world. But I think it would have been cool to take it all throughout elementary school and gotten to really choose which one was my favorite and which one I connected with the most.
The next question is, what potential do you see for a special such as this with building community and creating a deeper connection and belonging for students?
A close friend of mine leads an organization called HICA. It's a Hispanic Interest Coalition of Alabama. And when we were having this same conversation about culture, exposure, and students being able to experience a new culture, I just thought of his team coming in and sharing with those students in their Spanish special about the work that they're doing in advocacy for the Hispanic population of the state of Alabama. One of our students referenced the Fiesta Day in Birmingham. That's a really big showcase of culture in our city, probably the largest. In German, I know we do German Day every year in March in Tuscaloosa, and doing that in 6th and 7th and 8th grade, and I haven't been able to go back since. But that initial experience that I had at German Day was really important. So being able to fold elementary students, get folks into that German Day and Fiesta and other groups even earlier, I think just continues and perpetuates our better exposure to other cultures.
And especially just within the classroom, a language class is much different than a math class. You're doing a ton of speaking to one another and giving more presentations. So you really go closer as a class. I'm closer to my German classes than I ever am to a math or a science class. So it really just grows bonds within just your peers in your own grade.
And I know that one of your classmates that is in the ASL class, she couldn't be here tonight. She mentioned how wonderful it would be when you have a new student transfer into the class from another country and everyone in the class could say hello in their language. So things like that were so, that was really meaningful to me to hear your feedback. The last question I have for you this afternoon is, from a student perspective, what do you think we should consider prioritizing in our elementary world language specials?
I would just underline the culture piece, that we are very clear with our educators, board members, administrators, that the goal is not full level proficiency by 5th grade or the end of this elementary education experience. That this is about getting them a sample so that when they go to middle school, they're ahead of the game. That middle school is not the sampler, that elementary is the sample. Then by the time you get to middle school, and then by the high school, they're really developing the language. So I would just encourage us to be clear on our goal is that it's not full-scale proficiency. It is getting that sample of education or of this language even earlier than the middle school.
I think that's perfect. Just like an Epcot experience, get to experience all of them, see which ones you love, which ones you cannot learn at all, and just let them start earlier so that they can get to see biliteracy faster and be able to move on to the global scene.
Well, thank y'all so much. I appreciate you coming and being willing to speak. So you've heard, these are the 5 languages that we have at the high school: French, ASL, Latin, Spanish, and German. And when we think about how we want to implement this with One Rebel, One Future, we would like to give exposure to all 5 of those languages to our elementary students, kindergarten through 5th grade. And we would do that on a rotation. We have 5 languages and we have 5 schools. So we would hire 5 individuals and they would rotate to each one of the schools, and it would be about a 7-week rotation. Since it's 5 instead of 4, the 9 weeks won't exactly match. But what we would do is we would do a 7-week rotation. And so the individual that's teaching French would teach kindergarten through 5th graders for 7 weeks at one school, then they would rotate. And so when we think about job descriptions, this one is a little more tricky because this is a program that is very difficult to find models for. With STEM, we've been able to go out and observe and view other schools that are doing it, doing a good job to kind of get the idea of how we want to craft it for our school system. With instructional partners, we already have instructional partners in our state. We have descriptions from the state. We have the Alabama Best Practices Center who trains and provides professional development in that area. This is something very new, and there are no public schools in our state or even close by that we could go by and observe. So what we have done is we talked to our focus group, our world language teachers. I really appreciate Lisa and her team providing pros and cons for the different ways to look at how we wanted to craft this for our elementary students. We're talking to different universities to see what their input would be. And so this is still a work in progress with our job descriptions. I haven't finished talking to all the university people that I want to talk to before we have this firm and ready. But just know that a lot of work from a lot of different people have gone into really crafting and creating something that I think will be very special and very unique for Vestavia Hill City Schools.
But Ray, what do you have? Is it a elementary teacher that has excuse my lack of knowledge here, is it an elementary teacher that has a specialization in a foreign language? Because that's not done a lot. Or is it a high school teacher that?
Well, and that's why I said that that's still a work in progress, because when I talked to, and again, I haven't talked to all of the university professors that I have on my list of contact. I've talked to some. I've also talked to some of our world language teachers, and I've looked at some of the research. And so when we think about job descriptions, some of the things that are going to be necessary, of course, is certification. They're going to have to be certified to teach elementary students. They're going to have the skills to instruct elementary age children, and they need the knowledge and the content. And one of the things that some of the language teachers have mentioned to me is the importance of accent and production of the language, because you want them to hear the right accent as their, and I'm looking at Lisa, if you want to weigh in on the importance of accent and those developmental years.
Well, we want, because children model what they hear. I mean, and so having a person that is proficient in the language is critical. Having someone that may have had a little bit of exposure, but don't, there's 2 schools. There are people that have gone old school with very grammar-based type of education, probably what you guys remember from high school, Spanish or, world language experience. And then there's those that hear the language and it's more productive. So students will model what they hear. So if someone is not able to speak the language, then they're going to reflect exactly what it is. And we want to make sure the foundations are solid.
And so in saying that, that's why this is still a work in progress. And But thinking about the importance of that, we would need someone who's certified and someone who can work with elementary students, because of course that's who we're working with. And then the next thing is this, this production piece, the knowledge of the content and production piece. So it could look different. It may be an elementary teacher whose native language is German. It could be a teacher who has an additional degree in one of these other languages that speaks fluently. As we talked about earlier, the syllabi literacy. The syllabi literacy, where it is demonstrated that a person may speak these other languages and they may have a degree, it may be a K-12 degree in special education, but yet they're fluent in this language and have a K-12 certification. So again, that's why this has been very layered and a little more difficult. It's been more of a challenge than some of our other things that we want to implement with One Rebel, One Future, because it's not something that's been done everywhere. This is kind of groundbreaking. We're on the forefront of this. And it's exciting, and that's why we're thoroughly vetting it and talking to multiple people to make sure that we have the absolute best people in place with the qualifications and certifications. And I think most important, but beyond the love for children, that's number one always with everyone we hire, but then also to make sure that they are fluent and have the right accent that our children need to hear as they're developing these languages in elementary school. So I'm sorry that I'm still working on that piece.
That's what I'm.
But that is some of the things that we're vetting and making sure that we.
But I love the rotation. I love that they get to see all of the aspects and then pick what they love versus what's the easiest class or what my parents made me. What my kids would tell me. So I love the exposure to it, and I think I'm no expert, but I think one will teach help the other learn the other language and get back into English.
And I think one unique aspect too that I think would be helpful having the rotation, all our elementary schools will have the same French exposure, the same German exposure when they reach middle school. So I think that's an important piece for consistency.
I see we're about to get into
I'm sorry. Stop it there. Oops. I think
Let me take over for just a
second. I'm sorry.
I see we're about to get into it right now, but I think Macy's come up with just an awesome idea. And like World Language Day, Epcot, and maybe I'm asking for a friend or maybe I'm asking for myself, but I'm thinking having a bunch of food trucks from all these different areas and having like Epcot, snack around the world, and I can really see this really being big. So thank you, Macy, for the great suggestion there.
The point is that the culture part is what will gravitate a younger kid faster, would be my guess. I mean, you were right, as elementary teachers, so right now I would think the culture part would be such an important part for really young kids.
And y'all are already giving the rest of my presentation. So here's an example of students at our freshman campus. And because we want to, in our elementary grades, the people that we hire to teach our special class on world languages, we want to give them the opportunity to plan and work together, but we also want to give them the opportunity to work with our high school teachers so that we're making, we have those connections as well. And we want to provide opportunities for our high school students who are in the language clubs to connect with our elementary students. And that was their idea. Whenever I met with students, they want to do something like Rebel Pals with the language clubs and our specials in elementary schools. And then service projects. An example that was shared with the student I spoke with that is in ASL, she said they go to, I want to say maybe nursing homes and some different places where they get the opportunity to volunteer and use their sign language. And then local international events, some of those things that we have around the city. And like you mentioned, having some things here in our district just to celebrate culture. So when we think about our elementary experience, we want to make sure that it's age appropriate, that we provide them with an experience, we give them exposure, and that it's also exciting, because that's what's going to draw elementary students. And when we get to this slide, this was the one you were talking about. We want to make sure that we introduce them to food, music, geography, games, and most of all, it needs to be fun, because these are elementary students that we're talking about. And there are so many connections and potential that it has for our students in these areas, and even more. This is just some: reading, writing, speaking, listening, critical thinking, developing grit and perseverance. It has so many opportunities to really launch our students and help them with these skills, not only in their world language special, but across their education experience in general. And then when we think about our goal, when we think about elementary students, our goal is not proficiency. Our end goal is curiosity. And so I had the little cap on the graduation cap on the heart, because what we hope is that we're providing a consistent experience and exposure to our students, kindergarten through 12th grade. So when they graduate and leave Vestavia Hill High School, they have a love and appreciation for other languages and cultures. And we really want to propel them to be able to have opportunities for their future when they leave us. And if our goal is curiosity and developing that, when they leave elementary school, what a powerful way to equip them to be successful, not only in middle school, but in high school, in whichever language they decide to pursue. And when we think about our mission statement, I want to really focus here on igniting curiosity, because that is the goal for offering this special for world languages in elementary school, and specifically around the pillar for appreciation of diversity. And that's what we hope to be able to provide with with our legacy of one rebel, one future. We want that legacy for our students as they leave our school district.
And as a recap, Dr. Rennie, if one rebel, one future is successful, this will go into the elementary schools this fall.
Yes.
Yeah, good luck, Meredith.
Next month, what we will do is I'll bring board members job descriptions that are for STEM teachers, language teachers, instructional coaches, all the programming you've heard about this semester. And on your approval, we just wait at that point. If we're successful, then the day after the election, we would move forward with advertising in order to fill them as quickly as we could and get the ball rolling for next year. So, thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. All right, we are now going to move into executive session. So I will entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing a student disciplinary matter. I want to remind all of us of the following. There will be no vote taken in executive session. No minutes of the executive session will be made. I estimate the executive session will last approximately 30 minutes. Following the executive session, the regular board meeting will reconvene. Mr. Bain, can you comment on the motion for an executive session?
The Alabama Open Meeting Act allows us to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All right.
Ms. President,
Yes.
before we go into executive session, could I make a comment as a citizen? Because I'd like for these folks to hear this.
Absolutely, Mr. Bain.
And I'll be real brief, but over the last week, our city lost two of its fine citizens. William E. Bill Porter died on March the 12th, and Henry Rookus passed away March the 16th. Both of these gentlemen were early members of this board. And I want to go on record as saying a final thank you to Bill Porter and to Henry Rookus Henry served 15 years on this board.
Oh, bless him.
And I want to kind of, after thanking them, I want to say this. We formed our school system on April the 30th of 1970. We'll be 53 years old next month. And I was right there when the federal court said, when we formed our school system, justify forming this system. Convince this court that you deserve to be a school system. And our theory was our kids are attending East Elementary School and the pupil-teacher ratio is 45-1. And by George, we want excellence in education and we want low pupil-teacher ratios. And the court say, yeah. Well, 53 years later, if Henry Ruckus and Bill Porter saw Dr. Cooper's presentation last month on engineering, math, and science, and this presentation of bilanguage presented tonight, it would be Bill and Henry that said, Dr. Freeman, thank you and the board for one rebel, one future. Y'all are doing an incredible job. This is fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me.
Anytime. All right, so we will adjourn for executive session and then we will reconvene if you would like to stay outside.